When one of our writers suggested compiling a list of the best games of the century so far, I laughed. I laughed right in the writer's face. The century just started, writer. This century has barely even gotten going, writer. There can't have been many games at all released this century, writer. Then I realised the century started 20 years ago and I had a horrible existential crisis and a little cry. Time sure flies when you're having fun. On the bright side, those 20 years have given us some absolute gems, from franchises that deliver top quality title after title to standalone IPs that we keep going back to year in, year out. We've already covered 20 video games that defined this generation, but we're expanding the scope here to encompass everything released this century so far. If you haven't seen that video, check it out, and if you have seen it, why not give it another watch? It's good. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are the 10 best games of the century so far. Number 10. Halo Combat Evolved. For our first entry, we must cast our minds all the way back to the turn of the century to take a look at Halo Combat Evolved, which to this day remains one of the best launch titles to ever grace the console wars. It's no Wii Sports though, come on. Following a devastating crash onto Halo, an ancient ring planet, Christ no one tell Gollum, Super Soldier John 117, Master Chief of the United Nations Space Command, must battle against the Covenant, a genocidal alien race that have their little hearts set on destroying anything and everything. Aww. At the time, Halo was described by critics as being the most important launch title for any console ever. It may not be the very best FPS of all time, we'll get to that one later, but it is difficult to argue against the cultural significance of the game, not to mention the feelings that come flooding back when we think of those hours-long split-screen death matches. Those were the days. In short, Halo took one look at GoldenEye 64, said, "Hold my beer," and proceeded to set the bar for every shooter since. And that, my friends, deserves a pat on the back and a nice cold Heineken. Number 9. Dark Souls. Despite having a difficulty curve steeper than the stairs up TripleJump towers, honestly do yourself a favour and just take the lift, and being the primary reason for many a controller being forcefully lodged into television sets, Dark Souls is a marvel of action role-playing gaming. There is no denying that Dark Souls is difficult, and it certainly isn't for everyone. Our writer, for example, gave it about an hour and a half before hurling her controller across the room in a rage, startling the cat and booting up Animal Crossing instead. But if challenge is what you crave, then there's plenty of enjoyment to be had, because that's exactly what makes it so good. Dark Souls also boasts a morbid beauty in its environment and character design, which invoke both a sense of awe and a massive feeling of dread. Aside from the critical acclaim it garnered, largely for being a departure from the cinematic hand-holding titles of the late 2000s, it also spawned reams of sequels and copycats. Dark Souls is also cited as a major influence for many different pieces of media, from the likes of Destiny and Lords of the Fallen to television show Stranger Things. Yeah, it is undeniable that Dark Souls has left its mark, not only on several pieces of furniture, but also in the hearts of its players. Number 8. Mass Effect 2. You know what they say, in space, no one can hear you in space, and also on the internet, no one can hear you scream, "Actually, that's a photo of me, please stop uploading it and pretending it's you." Seriously, that is actually me, that's my photo, it was stolen from my Twitter. Anyway, moving on. Luckily, that isn't true of Mass Effect 2, because we could hear everything just fine. It isn't often that a sequel is better than the original. Heck, you only have to look slightly further into Mass Effect's future in order to see the downward spiral.
What are you looking at, her hair?
But Mass Effect 2 managed it. Following on from the events of the first game, we're reunited with Commander Shepard, who after a brief jaunt into the afterlife, courtesy of the Collectors, is resurrected and embarks on a mission to kick ass and take names. It's a little more complex than that, but you get the gist. Mass Effect 2 garnered the most praise for its interactive storytelling, which is not only engaging and emotional, but even goes as far as to use your Mass Effect save data to influence the game's direction. This emphasized the idea that your choices throughout the series would influence the overall outcome. Sadly, this didn't come to fruition, with Mass Effect 3 effectively spitting in the collective faces of fans of the first two entries, and we won't even talk about Andromeda.
She's not inline skating.
But despite the downward trajectory the series has taken in recent years, at least we can look back fondly on the first two. Number 7. Grand Theft Auto 5. We couldn't have possibly gotten through this list without the inclusion of one of the steely-wheely automobile games, and after much debate around the office and only a few thrown punches, we settled on Grand Theft Auto 5. Like its predecessors, Grand Theft Auto 5 offers a gritty, open world, beautifully pieced together by a development team of over 1,000 Rockstar employees. The effort really shows, because the environment is spectacular, feeling like a real city build of individual components rather than a cut-and-paste job like so many others, Cyberpunk. With a score of 97 on Metacritic, Grand Theft Auto 5 is one of the highest-ranking games of all time. Yes, we know GTA 4 is ranked higher, but I'll be damned if I give a spot on this list to Cousin Roman. GTA 5 is held in extraordinarily high regard, and considering its excellent story, graphics, and characters, along with the fact that its legacy has spanned 3 console generations, it isn't difficult to see why. Oh, hang on. Hello? Oh, Cousin Roman. The list? Yeah, there's been a bit of an issue there. Sorry. Number 6. World of Warcraft. You truly know you've made it in the world when your very existence inspires an entire episode of South Park. The MMORPG, or massively multiplayer online role-playing game, if you want to get serious about this, may not have been the first of its kind, but it is the biggest, having over 4 million active players and boasting revenue of over $9 billion by 2017. And it is arguably also the best. Set in the world of Azeroth, players start out by creating a character and choosing to align themselves with the Alliance or the Horde. From there, the world of Warcraft truly is your oyster of Warcraft. Although subscription-based, the sheer number of people dedicating hundreds, if not thousands of hours of their lives to the game should tell you that fans are getting good value for their money, with millions of players more than happy to shell out each month to keep logging on. Number 5. Resident Evil 4. Oh yeah, it's spooky time! There were arguably a number of horror titles released in the last 20 years that could have made their way onto this list, and if weeing yourself is your idea of a fun Saturday evening, why not check out our list of 10 horror games so terrifying we couldn't finish them? Ultimately though, we have to give the nod to Resident Evil 4. Released as an exclusive for the GameCube of all consoles back in 2005, Resident Evil 4 followed US government agent Leon Kennedy as he attempts to free the president's daughter, Ashley Graham, from the clutches of an evil cult. Despite Ashley being one of the most irritating characters in gaming history, honestly, if it were up to me, I'd have let the cult keep her, Resident Evil 4 has been globally praised for its interesting characters and narrative, as well as its gameplay mechanics, which influenced the future of survival horror and popularized the use of third-person perspective. Resi 4 won several Game of the Year awards, holds a whopping score of 96 on Metacritic, and has gone on to be re-released over the years, as recently as 2019 for the Nintendo Switch, so new generations of horror fans can have difficulty sleeping. Number 4. BIOSHOCK. Now, I know what you're going to say, dear viewer, but Ben, BIOSHOCK is just a rip-off of the infinitely better and massively underappreciated System Shock, to which I would respond, shut up! Firstly, System Shock and its sequel System Shock 2 both came out before the turn of the century, and secondly, I bloody love BioShock and I will fight for its spot on this list. BioShock enchanted gamers upon its release in 2007 with its stunning setting, engaging plot, and shocking twist ending. Set in the dystopia of Rapture, a sprawling underwater metropolis haunted by the genetic experiments that ultimately led to the society's collapse, you awaken following a plane wreck to embark on a voyage of deep-sea discovery guided by the seemingly friendly Irishman Atlas as you work to uncover the truth behind the city's downfall. Players must fight their way through hordes of psychotic splicers, face off against the hulking big daddies, and choose whether to save the little sisters or harvest them for the Adam they contain. You know, if you're a monster. Along with both of its sequels, BioShock was beautifully remastered in 2016, allowing new players to enjoy the title for the first time, and bringing back old fans to relive the experience in glorious higher definition. So, if harvesting the little sisters is your thing, you can relish being a morally bankrupt fiend in 1080p. You bastard. Number 3. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. When it comes to the Elder Scrolls series, we fans have come to expect a certain quality, and when the series' 5th entry, Skyrim, was released in 2011, we were not disappointed. Taking us back to the continent of Tamriel, Skyrim puts players into the shoes of the Dragonborn, a mortal creature with the soul and power of a dragon, but you can't fly, which is sad. After narrowly escaping execution for unspecified crimes, the player must embark on a mission across Skyrim to stop the dragon Alduin before he can put an end to the world. Upon its release, gamers were floored by the stunning Norse-inspired landscape, praising the art style and handcrafted, lived-in feeling of the world that Bethesda had created. The release of the remastered version only served to improve the visuals further. It brought the engaging main storyline and endless options for things to do outside of it to a whole new generation of gamers who may have missed it the first time around. All in all, Skyrim is a breathtaking experience from beginning to end, and one in which it's possible to invest several hundreds of hours whilst barely having scratched the surface of what it has to offer. Number 2. Minecraft. Contrary to popular belief, Minecraft is not Hitler's lesser-known memoir regarding his love of knitting, and is in fact a fantastic sandbox game released by Mojang back in 2011. It's almost difficult to explain the virtues of Minecraft to someone who has no prior experience of it, though I'm pretty sure you'd have to have been living under a rock for the past decade to fit into that demographic. There is no story and no set goals apart from the ones that you set for yourself. You can spend hours at a time pottering around the procedurally generated mines, fighting the nasty beasties within and searching for those ever-elusive diamonds. You can work at your crafting table to build yourself a beautiful house with adjacent farmland. You can make yourself a boat and take to the seas to see just how far you can go. Trust me, it's a long way. Throw into the mix an endearing soundtrack and a stunning randomized landscape, and you have a title that is more than deserving of the number 2 spot on this list. Number 1. The Orange Box. What's that? A cheat entry at number 1? What is this tomfoolery? The fact, though, is this, my good dudes. The Orange Box, released in 2007, contains 2 of the best games of this century, plus a cracking first-person shooter thrown in for good measure. For that reason, I stand by my decision to give it the TripleJump and Brian Butterfield Award for Best Game of the Century so far. Most people who picked up the Orange Box expected Portal to be little more than a nice puzzler thrown into the mix to inflate the price a bit. We couldn't have been more wrong, because what we got was a puzzle mechanic the likes of which we'd never seen before. Varied and engaging challenges, darkly comedic characters, and emotional investment into a little grey cube with a heart on each side. I'm sorry, Companion Cube, you deserved better. The main draw, Half-Life 2, introduces us to silent protagonist and heavyweight contender for the Dick Mychinko Award for Stud of the Century, Gordon Freeman, as he battles the alien forces known as Combine and tries to save the world. Oh, and head crabs. Lots of head crabs. The game received no less than 39 Game of the Year awards and was met with universal acclaim for everything from its graphics and animation to its narrative. It's just a shame we've been waiting over 15 years for a sequel. It's cool though, Valve, you take your time. Either one of these titles could have taken the number 1 spot by itself, but why just have your cake when you can eat it as well?